Hey, welcome back everyone to another episode of Interventions and Detentions. I'm your host, Brad, and this is going to be a fun episode for me because I have a special guest this week. I'm going to introduce Stuart Smith to you here, and in a minute I'm going to have Stuart introduce himself and tell you a little bit about himself, how he came to be, and what he's doing today. Just a quick story about how Stuart and I met. It was really kind of a happenstance chance kind of thing. Sherry and I had took a vacation to celebrate. I think it was, I'm going to get this wrong, Stuart, our 20th anniversary.
20th.
Okay, thanks. I wanted to make sure I got that right. And we took a trip to Mexico, our first, out of country experience, all inclusive. It was a great time. And, sitting around the pool, we kind of trying to vibe with some people and noticed Stuart and his wife and kind of hit it off and had some drinks and started talking and like, hey, Stuart, what do you do? And he's like, oh, I'm a teacher. What grade? Fifth grade. I said, I used to teach fifth grade and I'm a principal now. And then, the wives started talking and obviously Sherry's a nurse and Stuart's wife is in the medical field too. Lots of just these little coincidences. We go to have dinner together one night and we start talking about like, I think you had a Jeep hat on. I'm like, do you have a Jeep? And he's like, yeah. And I go, I got a Jeep too. I mean, it was funny. Some of the commonalities that both he and his wife had to Sherry and I. So we hit it off, spent a lot of time together that week, and they really don't live too far away. They're in Illinois. We're in Indiana. Probably, what do we say, about, I don't know, 6 hours apart, 4 hours apart?
Yeah, I'd say closer to 4.
Yeah, it's not too far. Have we seen each other since then? Like one time?
Yeah, one time, but we keep in contact.
We do keep in contact, and we always say like, we got to get together soon. So after this podcast, man, we got to figure out a way to get together. But like I said, the reason I have Stuart on here tonight is it's kind of a neat experience because he's been a fifth grade teacher, but he is now in the role of assistant principal. And at the school that you taught at, is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. So I'm going to shut up for a minute. I'm going to turn it over to you, Stuart. Tell us a little bit about your background, how you came to be into education and how you came to be in that assistant principal role. And then we'll hit some questions for you. Okay.
Sounds good. So, I'm a third generation educator. My mom and then my mom's mom, they were both English teachers. Matter of fact, my mom was my high school English teacher, which had its advantages and disadvantages, of course. I always had lunch money, but if I got in trouble, she knew right away.
Absolutely.
So going into college, I was an accounting major and didn't find that as a fit. So, long story short, ended up in elementary education. Started teaching in a middle school for the first 8 years in Canton, Illinois, and then 1 year spot in another school before I ended up in Morton, Illinois at Lincoln Elementary School, where I've taught for about 17 years. So this is my 27th year in education, 26 years in the classroom, and then 6 months as an assistant principal. So it's probably unorthodox in most situations to go that long in a role as a teacher and then flip to administration. But there were a few things that kind of dominoes fell in the right direction at the right time. And so I guess we'll get into that a little bit later, but that's kind of how it ended up, and I love it.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that it's going well so far. And I know I've checked in on you a few times as you've made that transition. And it is, I guess I do agree that it is a little unorthodox that you spend, so many years in the classroom and then like towards I don't want to say, you're getting on that other downhill side of the career, I guess, like I am. And I was kind of the opposite. I did 6 years in the classroom and then bam, jumped right into it. And I can remember when I got that first phone call of the offer of a principal's job, and I was super excited, and I hung up that phone and I was like, what the hell did I just do? Did you have that feeling at all this year, even after that many years in the classroom?
Well, as a matter of fact, it's funny you asked that question because twice this week, we just started back to school this week, and twice this week, it's come up with two different individuals, one, my superintendent, and another colleague, that, there are days or moments where I feel like I'm built for it, right?
Yeah.
And then there's other times that I'm like, what in the world? I am outmatched. So there's a little bit of both, but honestly, the times that I feel outmatched are few and far between.
Yeah.
But, when you feel like you're good at something and then there's moments where you're not, it sticks out.
Yeah. Well, as we get ready to jump into this, one thing that I wanted to ask you is like, what's the one thing that nobody told you about, when you left the classroom and made that jump into the AP office? What was like the big shock that you've experienced so far that you didn't really know, or somebody didn't warn you or tell you about or give you that heads up about?
Well, I think people that are in the administrative role in education probably will chuckle at this, but in one word, time.
Yeah.
There's so much more time, so many more hours involved, whether it be with after school PTO, which is great, or school board meetings,
Hmm.
or just extra time after school organizing for the next day. And you might say to yourself, what do you mean? You don't have a classroom full of students to plan for, but there are a lot of moving parts in elementary school of 515 students, kindergarten through sixth grade, that you've got to tie up loose ends or, build a foundation for things that are coming up. If I had to pick another one thing that nobody told me about is, a big positive is just the connections with so many more students.
Yeah.
When I was in the classroom, we rotated from teacher to teacher, like a departmental situation,
Right.
and I knew about 75 students. And then the students that are in sixth grade, I knew those. So you get to know about 150 students. But as an assistant principal who greets every student that comes into the school every day, there's just so many more connections and really more of a family connection than just an individual student from that family with the connection. So, there's time is, you could look at it as a negative because it's so much more of it,
Yeah.
but the connections with so many more students is a huge positive.
Yeah, I get that. And I couldn't agree with you more on both of those things. And I think when I was looking at these questions, I was like, what was it for me? The one thing that nobody told me about. And I think it was that this position can also be lonely. I mean, I think you've got a nice setup where you've got a principal and you're the AP. Well, I shouldn't say that. I did have a role through middle school, in my last intermediate job where I did have an AP, and it didn't feel as lonely that way. But like, there's times where probably even as an AP, you feel a little isolated and alone, I bet, don't you?
Well, it's different. And I have heard that the situation that you're describing, I have definitely heard that from many people. And a former principal that I've had has mentioned that it can be the loneliest desk in the building. My situation is pretty unique. After teaching for 16 years in this same elementary school, my principal was a colleague of mine for 14 of those years, and then she was the assistant principal for 2 years, and then she got the principal job. So kind of piggybacking on an earlier comment that, the dominoes fell in the right sequence for me to like get into this.
Right.
It doesn't feel really lonely because, well, the office staff is awesome, and my principal has been great as a mentor, and
Yeah.
even the district administration has been very, very supportive. Always just a phone call away. So it hasn't felt as drastic as maybe I pictured it in my mind before I started the job.
Well, it definitely sounds like a great experience for your transition. I mean, it could be where you go to a different district, a different town, whatever, where you don't know anybody at all. What a great system that you have in place to make that transition. So let's kind of talk about that for a minute. When you think back to where you made that decision of, "Yeah, I think I want to be a principal," what inspired you to make that jump?
Okay. So I will be very honest with you. I loved teaching. I loved it.
Hmm.
And it was really only a colleague of mine who had secured her administrative credentials using a 1-year program from an in-state institution. And she mentioned to me, "Hey, you can get this done in a year and you'll have, this other certification. But really, I mean, you move across the pay scale. And as teachers, that's really the main way of increasing your income." So I was like, okay, well, I'm an old dog and these are some new tricks. Everything was online and there was definitely a learning curve. But so I wish I could say, there was this principal or there was this person that said, you can do this. And
Right.
I was like, you're right. It really wasn't like that. It was really kind of a slow start to it. But during the year that I was getting the coursework completed, the principal at my elementary school, she was planning to retire at the end of last year. And then luckily our assistant principal, who is now our principal, got that job.
Yeah.
And then the wheels started turning that maybe this could be a decent fit.
Right.
And of course, my wife and my two kids, they were all on board with um, encouraging me to take the next step. And to also, expand, because I was getting pretty comfortable, Brad, pretty comfortable, kind of knew the curriculum and,
Right.
step out of that comfort zone. And I, it was, the idea of it was scary, but I trusted them, and as I hope they trust me when it comes to, life decisions. So it really was a slow process, but, and maybe also unorthodox, that it wasn't like I've always wanted to be a principal. Um, but that's kind of how the ball got rolling.
Huh. So in that year program, was that like a master's program? Do you have to have like I had to get my master's in administration to become a principal. Is it just a certification, or how's that look? Because I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool that you could get through that in a year.
So you can only take this the way that I did it if you already had a master's, and I already had a master's in elementary education.
Gotcha.
So this is a specialist degree,
Yep.
32 hours. And yeah, so a little bit of a unique situation for me because I already had my master's.
Nice. Now, one more question, follow up to that. Does that just leave you at the building level, or could you go into a superintendency then?
Not with my certification.
Okay. Okay. I didn't think so, but I thought, well, every state's different. There's different criteria. So I thought that would be kind of cool too. If you ever,
Yeah.
I guess I'll follow up with one last question. Do you see aspirations in your future of being a superintendent?
I don't. I don't. I'm not even going to hesitate.
Good for you. And Stuart and I had a little conversation before we started the recording about that. And I'm kind of the same way. I just don't like, there's days where I'm thinking, man, I could do this. And I think I think I would want to do it. And then I look around at some of our superintendents in our area and the battles that they're battling. And I'm like, yeah, no, I think I'm good. I think I'm okay. So was there a defining moment for you in that process where it kind of hit like, yeah, I'm doing the right thing, and this is what I want to do now. I don't want to be a teacher anymore. I want to be, that instructional leader, that principal role. Was there a moment in that process?
I think I'm still in that whole transition of it. There are glimpses for sure.
Mm-hmm.
We monthly we have a administrative read aloud where the principal goes into. We offer it to every classroom where we go in and read a picture book. Sometimes it has a connection with a character trait or something like that, or sometimes it's just a holiday kind of fun book. Teaching fifth grade for so long, I loved it.
Yeah.
But when you can step into a first grade classroom or a kindergarten classroom and read a book and you could hear a pin drop and they love it, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I guess that's the kind of thing that I didn't realize that I was missing until getting into this role and having some of those moments. The other thing is we have Christmas programs,
Yeah.
and the younger students' Christmas programs, it is so enjoyable. And I remember when the first one was done, I looked at the principal, who were sitting next to each other, and I said, this might be the best moment of the year so far. It was just so fun.
Yeah. And they can be the worst singers and the worst dancers, but man, they're having the time of their life, and parents don't care, and staff don't care. It's just fun to watch them in their moment. They're living their best life at that point. So that's awesome.
Absolutely.
You kind of touch on this, and I'm going to start with my experience first. So when I took my fifth grade job, I had a really good principal. His name was Jim Nixon. He's since retired. And I think it was probably about year two, he was very philosophical, and he'd kind of, put his finger against his face sometimes. He's like, Brad, do you think someday you might want to get into principalship? I think you'd do a nice job, and you've got these qualities to bring to it. And he was the one that kind of planted that seed, I guess, for me, because I kind of like you, I was like, I don't think I want to be a principal, but I also knew, like, if I wanted to make that jump on the pay scale, I was going to have to get a master's. And then I kind of told myself I may as well get it in something I might use. And that was, to me, leadership. And so Jim was a mentor to me. Did you have, or do you have some mentors that helped, shape that mindset of becoming a leader?
There's having having been in education for so many years, there are a lot of principals that I've had. I can remember specifically, you name dropped, so I'll name drop. Mark Toomey was a principal of mine at a previous town and school, who first mentioned the idea. And of course, this was 20 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the furthest thing from my mind. But you look back at it now and you're like, well, maybe he was onto something. But mentors or previous leaders, they're really still shaping my mindset. I
Mm-hmm.
can't give my current principal enough enough praise for taking me under her wing and giving me the confidence to try something new or, adjust a procedure or those types of things. Our former principal, Julie Horsham, definitely exuded professionalism and helped with creating a culture in our building that is super strong and something that we're building upon, not recreating. So there's a lot of people in my long history in education that have components of it, but I guess those would be the main three.
Gotcha. So you talked about your wife and kids being supportive when this decision came about. Now we're 6 months into it. How are they feeling now? What kind of support or what kind of like are they getting upset about the time spent away? Because like you said in the beginning, the time is a big factor for you, and it's an adjustment for your family to make because teaching's there's definitely a time constraint with teaching as well. I get that. I feel like teachers are at school way longer than I am, put more time in, but we put different time in, outside of the normal hours, obviously. But like, what's been their reaction now after 6 months of Stuart, the principal?
They're still very positive with everything. Now, again, since I'm getting into this super late, I have a daughter that just graduated from Mississippi State University with her bachelor's. So, it doesn't really impact time with her. But my son is a senior in high school. The administration at my district, which is a different district that my kids go to school, but they've been great about being flexible for me to make sure I don't miss any of those things. Um, and when you're a senior in high school, you're kind of busy anyway. So
Right.
it's not like he's counting the minutes that I'm not at home. And my wife has been super supportive from before I was even ready for anybody to be supportive. So it's been supportive the entire time. And the biggest thing that I guess if you're going to pat yourself on the back is my kids have seen me not just um, get too comfortable, to keep striving or
Right.
to improve or to find something new. And I feel like, well, I hope that's something that they remember as they get older. Don't get complacent with where you are, continue to improve and grow. So
It's a great life lesson for your kids and your family. That's awesome that you touched on that. Well, as you've gone into this new reality now from classroom to AP, has there been anything, major adjustments that you had to make? I mean, we've talked a few of those things through this process so far, but anything that's shocked you or anything that you're like, whoa, I wasn't ready for that.
5-minute lunches.
You get that much?
Right. Yeah. So I'm used to having 35, 40 minutes for a lunch and,
Yeah.
use the restroom, chat with the person across the hallway about what's happening in the afternoon, all those types of things. That's all gone now.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
5-minute lunch and bring your lunch because there's no running to Jimmy John's to get a lunch.
Nope. There's a lot of days that I just don't even worry about lunch. I mean, like I'll snack on stuff or whatever, and it's just easier that way. I think like I'll survive. And what I think some of the shocking things or adjustments that I had to was the knocks on the door, like hey Brad, you got a minute? Just those
Whether you do or not, right?
right, whether you do or not, and you're never going to say no. You're going to say, yeah, sure, what's going on? But those were kind of things that I had to get used to too, because as a teacher, you don't really have those kind of things other than if a kid, unexpectedly needs your attention. But yeah, the 5-minute lunch is a real thing. So talk about some behind the scenes of your daily admin life, like the scheduling, discipline, emails. What's your day look like as an AP?
So, like the start of the day is outside. Some days it's beautiful. Some days it's windy. Some days it's very, very cold. So, um, we welcome the students into the building every day. And then after that, it could be one of many things. It could be an observation for a teacher. It could be a read aloud with a class. Um, it could be, uh, wow, I'm trying to off the cuff think of all the things. Sending emails for to staff about upcoming events or trying to grab volunteers for different activities that are going on. And then we've got the 2-hour lunch window where we have 4 lunch periods. And we have supervisors in the cafeteria, but it always is helpful to have an administrator presence. So sometimes it's just the principal. Her name's Wendy Bastine. Sometimes it's me. Sometimes it's both of us, which is great. And that time is also recess time. So there can be conflicts during that time outside. So sometimes that's a very busy 2-hour window. And then things settle down from about 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock. It gives some flexibility to check in with some teachers or make some informal stop-ins, or we have staff that's really great about letting us know if they're doing something unique, or they're trying something new and they want us to see it and give them some feedback. And then by the time it gets to 2:30, which it's a pretty quick day, 2:40 students are dismissed, and I'm outside for pickup. That takes about 20 minutes or so. And then after school is exactly what you mentioned before the question about, the knock on the door and those types of things.
Right. Yeah.
So I
It's a
plan for the
busy
next
day.
day.
That's a busy day. Sounds a lot like mine, actually. You mentioned, teacher observations, evaluations. So I'm going to jump into this question real quick. Have you found it challenging when you now, Principal Smith, not peer teacher Smith, have to go into one of those classrooms that you worked right alongside somebody and joked around with about observations, probably? How's that going for you now, and how's it going for your teachers, I guess, like having Stuart come in and be the, evaluator?
I really think it's probably weirder for them than it is for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I only say that because um, this is such uncharted waters for me this first year of doing this. And I feel so much more at ease with it now than I did 3 months ago of just, doing so many. But it's really been a pretty smooth transition. Now I will tell you, Brad, that our summative meetings for the evaluations are coming up in January and February. So, really uh, when the score, if that's what we want to call it, or the grade or the rating, is finalized from that year's pile of evidence,
Mm-hmm.
that could be it could be some awesome conversations. It could be some challenging conversations, but one, we touched on it before. One thing that makes this really unique is I've been a staff member there for a long time, and I was one of the most senior teachers or certified staff members. So it's not like they don't know me. And I hopefully, you can't see me, but my fingers are crossed. I hope that those relationships, will transcend moments of, talking about different types of growth strategies or things like that. Or, there's many staff members I know their husbands, I know their kids, I taught their kids. So it's not like they don't know me. So I hope that all of that historical time and effort plays into trust.
Well, and I would
So
assume, I think an advantage in your situation would be, just first off, the duration of time you spent in the classroom teaching, but then the transition from that to administration. I would guess teachers are looking at you like, well, he's still, he's not that far removed from the classroom, so he's not going to come in here and, try to fix things more than maybe, give me some insight or maybe some pointers, some tips, some strategies that will really be useful from his experience. Have you found that to be true?
well, kind of the opposite. Like there's times that I've done an observation and then we have uh, a meeting afterwards, and I will just have to say, honestly, I don't know what really, really good phonics instruction looks like because I've, in second grade or first grade, because I've never done it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I
So
feel
just
you on
being
that one.
transparent and honest. But since the first time I've seen that, I've seen a multitude of great engagement of students and what I think is really, really good teaching. And, really, this kind of section of questions goes along with, is there really any turmoil or any worry or those kinds of things about relationships with former, I would say colleagues. We're still colleagues, but, in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Really, there isn't this. I mean, I can't. I can't give enough credit to the staff for whatever my success has been in the last 5 months, and for the school, because there's just a very high level of professionalism, maturity, knowledge, practice, all the things that I'm not saying it's utopia, because we've got challenges, but
Yeah, well,
it's
absolutely.
just a really great place. So I don't know, maybe this whole podcast is going to, just disappear because there's really no conflict or whatever. But it's a great place, and I guess plays into all this whole the why we're here in me taking this position.
Well, and I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason, and it certainly sounds like that's the case here. And I'm really happy for you that things are going as well as they are, and you've got a staff that's embraced you as an administrator from the classroom as much as they have. That's an awesome situation for you to be in. But let's kind of look on the opposite side and not talk about staff. But has there been any hard lessons learned in this transition? I'm thinking like parent phone calls, parent meetings that, when you got that parent says, I want to talk to you about what happened with my son yesterday, or those discipline phone calls. What kind of lessons have you learned so far in these 6 months in those situations?
Well, I really haven't had. I'm still kind of waiting for the ball to drop on angry parent. I haven't had an angry parent phone call. I've had to make plenty of phone calls about student choices that were less than stellar,
Yep.
and but it was really not directed at me or a decision that I have made. I will tell you that one of the lessons that I've learned, and it still bothers me, is in situations where we have a dysregulated student and I can't fix it. I know that sounds very like straightforward, but there are I feel like I've got a lot of tools in my toolbox to do a lot of things, and then there's this.
Yeah.
And am I learning? Yes, I'm learning, but I guess I want to be great at it right out of the gate, and I'm still learning. So I mean, it's a hard there. If you ever if I ever have to like put my elbows on my desk and put my hands over my face, and just kind of take a deep breath, it's
Mm-hmm.
those kind of situations, because I just want to help. And in those situations, we have staff members that have a lot more experience and a stronger relationship with the students that help with that. And I guess I'm not there yet, which is a hard lesson to learn.
Well, I will tell you, not to burst your bubble of hope, but even after 20 plus years as a principal, there'll be days where I think I'll go get this kid and I can fix it. And there ain't no way he's listening to me or she's listening to me, or, I'm going to get him calmed down. It's a learning experience, brother. And every situation is different, unfortunately. And what worked with this kid, like, is not going to work with this kid. And all the training in PD. I don't know if you guys utilize, crisis prevention, CPI. I mean, that's what
We
we
do.
we take that training every year and refreshers. And there's so many good things about the de-escalation part, which I feel like is the most important part of CPI, because if you can, regulate or de-escalate the kid or the situation, it's going to end up in a lot better way than if it goes south. And I'm with you. I'm a fixer too. And not only my career, but my marriage, or I try to be. And I fail more often than I win, unfortunately. So, but we learn from those failures and, you know, debrief from them. And maybe next time we make adjustments that work a little bit better to our advantage. So
Sure.
you, I think, are a lot like me too in the aspect of building relationships. That's probably how you and I connected way back, years ago in Mexico. How did you start this year building those relationships and trust with kids? Let's talk about kids first, because like you said, you were kind of isolated as a classroom teacher in grade level. You knew the grade level kids and the kids that you had just passed on to the next year's teachers, but you had all these kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth graders coming up to you that you really didn't know. And here's new assistant principal Smith. How did you start right off the bat building some good relationships with kids?
Well, you know, outside of myself, I think that the positive relationships I've made with older siblings help with younger siblings.
Mm-hmm.
I think that having good relationships with families was a great head start. But like just within the school day, greeting those students at the front entrance every single day is awesome. I can't I can't tell you how many hugs that I've gotten from students that I'm like, is your name Betsy, or is it, I'm still trying to figure out all 500 names, but um, just just being present there and being visible is a big piece, because when you're a fifth grade teacher in your own kind of cycle of your day, second graders might not know who you are because you're not in the same schedule or routine.
Right.
So just seeing them first thing every morning and smiling and telling say happy good morning, and making a comment of their Star Wars shirt or whatever it is, kind of helps to make those connections. Another thing is being visible.
Yep.
Mrs. Vastine, our principal, and myself, we've tried to make ourselves visible in the hallways, even working at a table in the hallway or on a cart in the hallway, just so we are visible to students and we are accessible to teachers. And just calling the office if need be, we're right there in the hallway. Is that every single minute of the day? No, but it's definitely something that we're pushing. And then if you're in the hallway or if you're in the cafeteria and you smile and you say good morning, or you take the time to listen to a student, that can go a long way. So I think those are some things that have helped build trust with students. And then teachers, I have a really good relationship with all the teachers. So maintaining that, I think, maybe I'm going to your next question, but maintaining the trust with teachers, I think, is just being transparent and being straightforward and being honest. All of those things will pay dividends when things are going great, and then when we have challenges. So just being honest.
Good job. I like it. So you told me at the beginning, before we started, to hit the record button. I'm not going to go through what your day was like today, but you said it was a long day and you're tired. How do you keep that sense of humor going on days like you had today? How you come home and say, like, dude, do I really want to go back and do this all over again tomorrow? How do you keep positive? How do you keep that sense of humor going?
It's not easy every day. Some days are easier than others, but I do feel like during the course of the day, if it was a rough morning, getting back out into the hallway, and maybe you pull a little bit of positivity from somebody that's in the hallway as well, or um, you pop into a classroom and kind of feed off of the positive, first grade vibes. Those kind of things definitely help. And I'm not gonna overlook the power of a Coke Zero.
I hear you on that. For me lately, it's been Bloom Energy. And first thing in the morning, Sherry's on me all the time. Like, you got to slow down on those. I just have one a day, but man, it sets me up to a good thing. And like, if it's Coke Zero for you, man, do what you got to do. I say, there's worse vices than that. So let's think about this for a minute. And we kind of touched on it once, but thinking about the day that you had today, and you're tired and maybe even a little frustrated and worn out, there's probably somebody in your building that might be where you were a couple years ago, where they're starting to think, I might think about going into administration. What would you say to that aspiring, uh, leader that's now a teacher after a day like today?
Well, the it's kind of a big step for some people and maybe a smaller step for others. I think a big piece of it is just be honest with yourself. I feel like I'm ready for this job now, even though at the beginning of the year I questioned some days. But that's me, and we're not all the same. And you clearly got started way earlier in your career than I did, and it's you've been great at what you do. So I think just being honest with yourself to know if you're ready is a big piece of it. And I think this podcast is another way of sharing the positive situations of administrators, and that it's not all just overpowering paperwork and phone calls and all that kind of stuff. There's definitely a lot of fun and a lot of awesome pieces to the job. But just being honest. I think if somebody came to me and they said, I'm thinking about getting into it, and but I want to get your take on it. What do you think?
Right.
I would say to just know when you're ready, because it's not the same time for everyone. And I feel like if this was 10 years ago, I don't know that I would have had the tools to be ready.
Mm-hmm. I mean, as you look around and you visit your classrooms and you do your observations, and you don't have to name names, obviously, because I don't want to put you or anybody else in your building on the spot, but do you find yourself looking at your staff and picking out like, oh, I think that one right there, I think they've got what it takes to make that next step and become the instructional leader or the next AP, are you seeing those kind of traits in people as you visit classrooms?
I don't know if I could go as far as like getting into administration because I don't know as much as I'll know 3 years from now about what all the pieces needed for it to be successful.
Yep.
But I definitely um, recognize the leaders that we have in our school, and some of those leaders are fantastic because of longevity, because of knowledge, content knowledge. They're leaders because they lift people up, whether people recognize it or not. There's a big culture piece, and then there's some very very young leaders that either volunteer to present at um, some PD, or when asked to um, volunteer on a committee or do some of these other things, they they either don't hesitate because they're eager to, or they think about it and they're like, this is good for me, and this is going to be good for my grade level or good for my students. There's definitely a lot of leaders in our building, and another big win. I guess I'm all over the place, Brad, but
Oh, you're good. You're
another
good.
big win of having this position is I love our school. It's very high functioning. The culture is great, but I didn't know how awesome each individual teacher was until I went into their classroom for an hour or 30 minutes or read uh, read aloud, those types of things, to see the great education the students are getting
Mhm.
and the awesome personalities of all these teachers in front of their students.
Right. That's awesome. Now, that brings me to a question that's not on our little notes here. Do you have your teachers ever take advantage of those situations where they go visit classrooms, not as an observation or an evaluative tool, but just like a learning tool, like, hey, I want you to go see so and so because they're really good at, phonics instruction or their morning meeting or whatever it might be. Have you guys, you and your head principal as a team, pushed that kind of experience on your teachers yet?
Absolutely. Julie Horsham, a previous principal, she put it on us about 3 or 4 years ago that we just pulled names out of a hat. And we went, the expectation was 10 to 15 minutes on your own planning time. And if it didn't work for the other teacher or you couldn't figure it out, one of the admins would come and supervise your classroom while you went to go do that. And it was super valuable for me at that time to be in uh, a pretty profound special education classroom and to see for lack of a better word, magic that
Mm-hmm.
happens in there. So yes, this year we did basically do the same thing, and there was a lot of positive feedback from, it's kind of weird, right? Because if I'm a fifth grade teacher and I'd like to go see, what's happening in fourth grade, even if it's in my planning period, it's kind of weird to ask your colleague, "Hey, can I come in and watch you teach for 10 minutes?" Right? But if the admin puts it together where we're really encouraging you to go do that, and we're willing to cover your class, it had a lot of power positively for the staff to see their colleagues in their own element, and maybe they picked up a thing or two too.
And I haven't done that in this building. I've done it in previous buildings, and I felt like it was a pretty positive experience. Sometimes it's a little hard I feel like it's hard for teachers to watch teachers because they do not want it to be evaluative. And I feel like they almost feel like it has to be at some point. I'm like, no, it doesn't. I just want you to go watch. Really, I want you to watch the kids more than the teacher sometimes because they're the ones that are reacting from the instruction that's going on. So if the kids are doing great things, there's great things happening from the instructional leader in the classroom. And I don't know, maybe it's because my building's a little bit smaller and everybody really knows everybody really well. But again, they don't get to see each other teach. And I'm trying to figure out how to kind of finesse that a little bit and get it's almost like anything else. Teachers have to come up with that idea themselves sometimes
Yeah.
versus me doing it. So I'm still kind of playing with that, but I might have to talk to you off off the microphone sometimes about, yeah, hey Brad, try it this way, or you do this. I think
Yeah, the guy in 4 months
yep.
telling the guy's been doing it for 12 years or whatever.
Hey, old dog, new tricks, buddy. I mean, I think it could work. So talk a little bit about, again, you're not too far out of the classroom, that teacher mindset. Ha, has keeping that teacher mindset been a big, like, has it played a big role in this transition for you and, kept you kind of maybe grounded even?
Um, I think trying to be humble about not knowing what I don't know yet has been important for me. Um, I don't know how much. I think I'll be better at, I would say teaching teachers, but facilitating PD for teachers, that kind of thing. I think I'm going to be better at that in the upcoming years. I honestly feel like, I'm out of that doggy paddle stage, but I'm still trying to look around and see if there's sharks or, if there's a wave coming, those kinds of things and we have really great instructional coaches in our district that cover a lot of that. Not that it's not my job, because it is, but I think, I've been given grace to kind of tackle a few things at a time.
Yep.
And the PD thing, if I think that's kind of where you were going, I feel like, that's on the horizon, but it's not tomorrow.
Nice. So again, yep, you're fairly new to this, but I think this is a valid question at this point too. Based on, the 6 months and where you're at, what's the best piece of advice that you could give, or maybe even encouragement for teachers that are thinking about making that jump?
Yeah, it's probably not going to be as scary as you think it is. If they're like, if somebody in administration would come to a teacher and said, "Yeah, I think maybe you'd be good at this," you should trust them.
Hmm.
And if it's on your own, um, make sure that you feel confident. It's not just for the increase of pay or status or those types of things or the title, but it's really something that you want to do. I feel like there are people that kind of fall into it like me, then you feel comfortable about it. I'm a comfort zone guy, so I guess that's how most of my life is. But
Right.
um, I think if somebody approaches you, you should probably listen to them and
Nice.
give it some thought.
So on the flip side, what was the best piece of advice that you received as you transitioned into the athletic, or not athletic, the assistant principal's office?
So when I was a great question. When I was considering applying for the job, I had a former colleague that then got into administration at a different building in our district and then moved outside of the district. I asked him if he'd meet me at Jimmy John's and we had a sandwich. And I asked him basically that question. I said, what is the number one thing that would make not only me successful, but Lincoln School successful? And he said, be a united front with the principal. Make sure the office staff, school staff, just keeping everybody as a solid unit. He said, but if there's two people kind of in charge, those two people have to be on the same page.
Yep.
And lucky for me, I've known Wendy Vestine for a long time. Not in this role until the last 5 months, of course, but always respected her, the way that she treated people and valued culture. And we have, I'm sure we're not always going to agree on every single thing, but we have really been a united front for this first semester. And I think it's been powerful not only for us in our new roles, but also for the culture of the school.
Awesome. I don't ask for advice very often because, sometimes I just don't want somebody's advice. But my second principal's job was when I went back to the elementary school that I attended as a kid. And, some of the same teachers were still there that I had, hometown boy coming back to his building. And my principal that I had as a kid, he ran our inter-school mail. He'd been retired and his name was Richard White. Super tall man. He always reminded me of like the Jolly Green Giant when I was a little kid. He just looked enormous, tall, thin, sturdy stature, never really smiled. I mean, I can remember being in first grade in my classroom being close to his office. He would take kids out in the hallway to give them the paddle.
Oh
And
yeah.
Oh, so you knew if you made a bad decision, what it was going to end up like for you. So, fast forward to when I come back and take over, not for him, he'd been retired and there'd been probably two, maybe three principals in between him and when I took over. And I can remember as plain as day, he was sitting in our janitor's office close to the office, and I was carrying stuff in, moving into my office. And, I still called him Mr. White because he was Mr. White. And I said,
He's
"Hey,
always going to be Mr. White.
always going to be Mr. White." I was like, "You got any advice for me? Any something to help me out?" And he just kind of sat back in his chair with his legs crossed and kind of nodded a little bit. He said, "Brad, just don't take any from anybody." And just left it at that. And I thought, if it was as easy as that, I think you could be really successful. And he probably didn't take any crap from anybody, I'm going to guess. So
Yeah, it was a different time then, right?
it definitely was. So, all right, buddy, we're going to wind this down here, but we're not done yet because when I have guests on, this is my favorite part of the show when we wind it down, but we ask some rapid fire questions. So I don't want you to have to think too long, too hard about these. And I'll even say, hey, you can give me a pass if there's a question that you just can't think of something quick to come up with or witty. But here we go. Some rapid fire questions if you're ready.
I'm ready.
All right. Do you carry a walkie-talkie at school?
I do.
What's your go-to walkie-talkie phrase?
I'll be right there.
But that's a great answer, actually. I think mine is at dismissal time when I'll say, "Buses, you're good to go." It seems like it's the same words out of my mouth every single time. But now, do you have a call sign for yourself on the radio?
No. So we have like groupings for our walkies. So our walkie-talkies for our school kind of interact with each other. But anything that we say on that channel, the district administration can hear.
Yep.
So you're kind of, it's professional.
Good. Sometimes it's hard not to be professional on there. And we've got some people on our radios, whether it be bus drivers, janitors, whatever, that sometimes it's like I sit there and they're like, what are they? Why? Just stop.
Right.
What's the most random thing that you've confiscated from a student so far in this 6 months?
I didn't know what it was at the time, but it's called a labubu.
Wow. What is a labubu? Because I don't even know what
It's
that
like a little keychain stuffed animal.
is. Okay.
And they're very, very popular, and some students, it is a very cherished item.
Wow. I'll have to I bet I got some labubus in my school and I didn't even know it. I'm gonna ask tomorrow.
Probably.
Can I ask like what grade level that was?
Third.
Third grade. Okay. So, I bet I got some first graders that might carry a labubu around. I'm going to ask tomorrow at morning time.
Okay.
Hey, anybody got a labubu around here anywhere? See what kind of reactions I get. What's, the first thing that you do when you finally get to sit down after dismissal at your desk?
Okay. Post-it notes. I've got Post-it notes on my desktop, and it's one of those kind of cleansing moments of how many of these Post-it notes can I crumple up and put in the garbage?
Yep. Nice. I've went to a kind of like an electronic Post-it note. I think there's an app I think it might be called Do It or something like that. It's basically like I can put in hey, I need to do this, and then I can check it off of there and it takes it back off the app. It's really kind of a cool thing. I'll share it with you. Yeah. Makes it a little bit less messy than all those Post-it notes because I was there too, my friend. Harder to deal with, copier jams or parent emails?
It depends on what kind of parent emails. So I'll go with, because some of them are pretty great. I'll say copier jams.
Do you feel like you're the copy repairman sometimes in the office, or?
Absolutely not, but harder to deal with when you have a teacher or a paraprofessional in the hallway and they're trying to figure out how it is or how to fix it. And I walk up, and of course you're the assistant principal, so you should know how to fix a copy machine, right? And then I struggle. So.
If you had a walk-up song as you come up to bat every morning in your office, what would your walk-up song be?
Ooh, let's see here. Probably something calming like Kermit the Frog's Rainbow Connections.
Look at you. I had it in my head that you'd probably come up with something like metal pumping up, loud jamming kind of thing, but
It's just on the way home.
Oh, okay. What do you listen to on the way home? What do you listen to on the way home?
A big fan of like AC/DC, Pandora Radio. That's a good one.
Nice. I can feel you on that one. Favorite hallway duty snack or drink that you have around with you?
Well, maybe I should just say in the office because there's a lot of allergies in our school. Peanut butter M&Ms are fantastic.
Nice. Yeah, we have a lot of signs on doors that, no peanuts past this point. It's funny how I don't
Right.
remember kids having peanut allergies when I was a kid. I guess maybe they had them and they just didn't diagnose them, but I don't ever remember anybody dying from eating some peanut M&Ms. You know,
Right.
I don't know what's happened in the world since then, but good for you that you keep them in the office. Um, what's the sign that a kid is about to make a bad decision? Like, what do you look for? And you can just know, like, oh man, something's going to happen here.
Okay. So like in the cafeteria, when you're just looking over the sea of heads and you see some kid where looks to his right, he looks to his left, he looks to his right again, almost like he's going to shoplift or something.
Uh huh.
If he's looking around to see if there's anybody watching him, something's probably going to happen.
That is universal because I knew when you started to describe that, like I started seeing it in my head, like that kid sitting there looking, and then they make eye contact with you, and they look away, and you don't, and they look back, and they still do it anyway. Now, I guess my follow up is: do you ever intervene, or do you just let it play out and just let them make that bad choice?
Well, there's a couple variables that play into that. Proximity and also how well do I know the student already?
Yeah.
So if it's a student I already know, I can kind of give them, I would say the look, but kind of raise my eyebrows like I know something's going on, and that'll usually kind of calm it down. Or if they're pretty close, if it's 3 or 4, 5 steps away, that's one thing. If it's 40 feet,
Uh
then
huh.
it kind of plays into it as well.
Nice. So in a lighthearted fashion, and you don't have to name names necessarily, but if you want to, you can give them a shout out. If you could give a staff member in your building detention, who would it be and why?
Mr. Hamilton is our custodian,
Okay.
very established custodian. He's been there as long as I've been there. And I'll shout out to his late mother, Linda. She was our night custodian before she passed away.
Oh, wow.
I would give him a detention because it doesn't seem like it's very fair. Um, I often will use his mop in the cafeteria for spills, but
Yep.
he has yet to send an email on my behalf. I don't think it's very fair.
I think he owes you one, doesn't it? Sounds
Or
like it.
or several, yeah.
Or several. Well, shout out to Mr. Hamilton. That's awesome. Let's finish it up with this. Finish this sentence. Being an AP is like what?
It's like being a paramedic at a circus.
Oh, man.
You're on the edge of everything that's going on. You're not doing the teaching, which means you're not the one that's, trying to get the line to jump through the hoop.
Yep.
You're not the one that's doing the high trapeze act, like the sixth grade teacher that's trying to teach ratios and that kind of thing. But you're right there on the edge, waiting to be needed at any moment. And you want to be needed, but you kind of hope everything goes well.
Exactly. Well, that pretty much describes it right there. I love that analogy. Stuart, we're at the end, buddy, and I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your busy schedule. And I know you had a long day today, and I even gave Stuart the out. I'm like, buddy, if you don't want to do it tonight, we don't have to. We got plenty of time. He's like, I'm ready. We got this. So thanks again for jumping on. Any last thoughts or words of wisdom you want to share with people before we sign off here?
Well, I just appreciate you inviting me to do this, and not only are you a dad and a husband and a principal, but you're also trying to lift up other people either in education or outside of education with your podcasts and probably how you greet people at the grocery store too. So keep
Absolutely.
doing you.
Thanks, man. I don't know if I've got one listener, two listeners, or maybe a few hundred yet. I don't really care. I enjoy doing this, and I'm glad you could be a part of it. And shout it out to your staff. Maybe do the next in service where you listen to this 53-minute podcast and make them take some notes.
Kill me. Like time to go.
There you go, buddy. Well, hey everybody, we're at the end. Thanks for tuning in again this week. We love that you stop by and join us each week for Interventions and Detentions. I'm your host, Brad, and don't forget Interventions and Detentions. This is where the real learning begins. We'll see you next week.